Hey BookTube, I am here today to talk about reading wrap up for the entire year. I have a hard time doing the best of video yet because that'll probably come out end of January. Probably end of January, honestly, because I have to process the books I read a little bit, and I have a lot more to read on my goals, and it's early December and I'm filming this video. So I'll probably do a best of 2020 way later than everybody else's. But what I do want to talk about is all of the series I've read and started this year and what I hope to continue into 2021. Everybody say hi to my Christmas sweater R2D2. He's so cute. And just I think I do want to talk about some favorite books, but it's probably not going to be in a full exclusive list. Again, there's 2.5 more weeks left in January. So, I just have my Goodreads open here. Oh, this is fun lighting on the bottom half of my face now. I will say, just a note on my reading this year, I did a lot more that's bad lighting on my face. The lighting's not great, but it's fine without that. I did a lot more audiobook reading than I have ever done before. I've not been against audiobooks before, but I really sunk into it this year. And I think that's a lot to do because I was working from home and I could just audiobook when I was doing not all of my work tasks, but some of my work tasks, and I wasn't able to go anywhere, so I had to spend a lot of time doing puzzles or sitting around just doing existing. So I loved all the audiobooks I've listened to this year. They've been great. And if you don't like audiobooks, you probably just haven't found the right one for you, because prior to this year when I listened to audio, it was literally only nonfiction books. And this year I started listening to some fantasy, some other things technically listen to a horror book on audio. Don't recommend that for me anyways. So I will say that audio has been super pivotal in my reading, the amount of reading I've been able to do this year, which as of December 10th is 95 books. Jesus. So without further ado, I will say the best series I have read so far this year for me was I got to reread the Stormlight Archive and top it off with the beautiful book that was Rhythm of War. I'll see if I can do the little timestamp with my Rhythm of War review. It is very full of spoilers, so take that into account. But yeah, I loved rereading that series and getting to read Rhythm of War. It was amazing. And in addition to that, I read the entirety of the Cosmere this year, with the exception of White Sands, because I have not been able to find the comic books at a price I'm willing to pay or at my library. So I did read the Arcanum Unbounded and all of the other novellas and stuff like that. So that is super exciting. And the Cosmere as a whole was really fun to read, especially when it came to be in terms of how I was able to perceive everything that was happening in my reread of the Stormlight Archive, and especially in book 4 where there was a lot of Cosmere implications. So that was a great reading experience I had in 2020. It, however, did unfortunately burn me out a little bit on fantasy. So that's why I'm taking a break in December. I'm reading mostly classic books or just literary fiction and whatnot. So overall, 2020's biggest reading, I think, feat for me was the Cosmere and the reread of the Stormlight Archive. If you want to hang out with us, we're going to be continuing in January with Mistborn Era 2 and Warbreaker and some other books like that, so I'll have the Sandor Fans Discord link down below. Additionally, I was able to read this year, or I was able to start, I've not completed it yet because it's a lot, the Wheel of Time, and the first 4 books have been exceptional. They were a little slower to start, but I don't hold that against the books. When the series has 15 books, I believe, don't quote me on that, in editing, Casey will come in here with a number of the official amount in the series, including the prequel. When a book has that many a series has that many books, I know it's going to be a slower start, but I really like the magic so far, and one of my biggest reading goals for 2021 is to finish this series. But I'm going to take a little break first, because again, the fantasy burnout is real. But yeah, the first 4 books, especially book 4, were just really good, and I had a great time reading it, and I look forward to getting to put out more content related to the Wheel of Time in the next year. Just kind of scrolling through the books I have read this year. We're going to start at the bottom. This is going to be really, a really good video, can y'all tell? I did read a good amount of nonfiction books this year. and that is cool. I typically read primarily information technology or astrophysics kind of nonfiction books for some reason, but that's where we're at, and I enjoy them. And I think some favorites from the year were Sandworm by Andy Greenberg. It discusses the Russian hackers that did a lot with the Ukraine's power being turned off, and a bunch of other related or adjacent cyber attacks. And later in the year, I read, I gotta scroll back up to the top now, Reality is Not What It Seems by Carlo Rovelli, and that was very fascinating. And it just, I obviously don't do physics for a living or space stuff, but that was just a cool thing to read, and I had a really good time reading it. So very educational for sure. Let me see. I read The Stand, Desperation, Misery. I'm still anticipating reading Carrie, so hopefully I'll get that done before the end of December. But I got to read a good chunk of Stephen King, which has been fun. I definitely used to read a lot more Stephen King at a time, but they're basically, last year, so 2019, I tackled the Dark Tower series. And I'm not one of the people that enjoy the end of that book, so I needed a break from King. But The Stand was probably not my greatest choice to read that early pandemic, but it was a great book, and Desperation was super good, and I was very surprised by it because I've never heard anything about Desperation. But if you like Stephen King and you haven't read it, you should go check it out. It looks really big, but it's only like 600 pages, and for Stephen King books, that's kind of short, by the way. But let me just continue scrolling. Back on the nonfiction note real quick, I did a lot of educational anti-racist literature reading, and I got to read So You Want to Talk About Race, Black Rednecks and White Liberals, the White Fragility book, and not nonfiction, but fiction related to similar issues, Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. And I am still planning on reading more on that topic because it is very important to educate ourselves. This year brought out a lot of the issues that people didn't realize were necessarily happening, or people were just willing to turn a blind eye to these things, and that's not okay. So I do really encourage you that even though, like, it's a new year coming up here soon, to continue doing reading. I know I intend to, and I think I read another one, but I can't find it just really easily on my Goodreads, so yeah, so definitely don't just take the fact that the year ended as an excuse to not continue to educate yourself about these social justice issues that are issues for a reason that we'd ideally like to correct in as soon as humanly possible in the future. So, yeah, that was good to read, and I'm firmly of the belief to read as much of it as you humanly possibly can, because, and this goes for any nonfiction topic, it's you have to be able to decipher what is more truth and fact and experience that, like, needs correcting in yourself, and on the truth and fact issues in the book is that not every nonfiction book is telling you the whole truth. So if the more literature you read on a specific nonfiction topic, including like the Black Lives Matter movement, is super important, so you can get all of the ideas in your brain, figure out what's going on with you in those issues, and decipher best for yourself how to move forward. So I think that's like the majority of the bigger chunks of books I read, with a lot in the same topic. But I would like to mention that my DNFs for the year were not that many. I don't DNF books very often, and even if I do DNF the books, so yeah, I don't really DNF books very often, and even if I do, I typically go read like the summary to see how it ended, or Spark Notes if they exist. But I did DNF A Clockwork Orange because the violence was a little much for me. I know in my Rory Gilmore 24-hour readathon I said I finished it, but I didn't. So there, now you'll know. That was a lot, and I wasn't a huge fan of the violence in that book. I do want to see the movie still now that I've read the book, but I'm Yeah, what the writing style and all the violence really wasn't for me in a book. It probably won't be for me in a movie either, but here we are. Did I DNF any more books? We're gonna find out. Oh, I did DNF an audiobook called Freaks, and I thought it was nonfiction going into it about the old school phone hackers, freakers. It was not nonfiction. It was not what I wanted, and it was... The audiobook production was really good for it, so I'll probably go back and listen to it eventually, but as of right now, not interested in that, because there was a lot of stuff going on. I was not prepared, and I did not have a good time with it. Those might have been my only 2 DNFs for the year. It's hard to tell because Goodreads doesn't, like, let you do a DNF thing, and I wasn't intelligent and didn't put them in a DNF category. Oh, actually, one more. I DNF'd The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. I loved one of the storylines from the older woman who was a spy during, I believe, the French occupation of Nazi occupation of France during World War II. But the younger character whose perspective we explored this older lady's perspective through was a garbage character who whined a lot, and I just did not need that at the time. So I DNF'd those 3 books this year. Again, I'm probably Casey editing from the future, or will be a separate video. I'll talk about my favorite books of the year. But at this point, just in case I decide to not put out another video, I will say I really loved Mistborn Era 2 of the Cosmere. I was really upset when book 4 was not out yet. Brandon Sanderson, get your life together. I loved that series a whole lot. I think the characters and the more steampunk Wild West setting was great for me. I liked Mistborn Era 1, obviously, but I enjoyed the characters more, and obviously Sanderson had done more writing by that point, so the structure of the stories was a little bit better for me. And as much as I love Vin from Era 1, she was a little whiny for my attitude. And there was... Anyways, we're going to not talk about badmouth Mistborn because it's also great. Rhythm of War was fabulous. Rereading the whole Stormlight Archive books 1 through 3, and then rereading Rhythm of War was a grand time. Loved it a lot. I really also enjoyed my read of War and Peace this year. I don't know if I would qualify it as a favorite book of the year or favorite book of all time, just because I did listen to it on audio, and when I use audiobooks, they kind of help me go to sleep sometimes, so there's definitely probably chunks that I missed in my absorption of the audiobook. So I did love Tolstoy, and he did motivate me to read Anna Karenina, the War and Peace reading motivated me to read Anna Karenina, which I'm reading now and I absolutely love, and I'm reading the physical book, so that might be a top classic book of the year. But again, we're not done with it yet. So I also got more into reading some mysteries and suspense thriller novels this year, which were great. So let me see, what other favorites did I have? Favorites. I reread Ocean at the End of the Lane this year, and I did that on audio for, I think it was the Rory Gilmore 20-hour readathon, and that's still a favorite book of all time. It's a beautiful story. It kind of sounds like it's kind of whimsical and everything, and it definitely is, but it's also like a horror, like magical realism story set in a place in I believe England. I was going to say the UK, but I think it's in England. It's about this man going back to his, like, childhood home for a funeral, and then going back to visit an old friend who he's not sure is still there, and kind of reliving what he experienced as a child due to the monsters that were not just fantastical. So it's a great book. And I think Daphne du Maurier's Rebecca was an exceptional read. The audiobook was also great for that. I did the production that was designed for being listened to with headphones on or in a car at like full volume. So like the subtle music and stuff in the background was great. And I'm really excited to read more Daphne du Maurier books which you'll hear all about in my 2021 reading plan goals video that should be coming out soon, depending on when I post this. I think another favorite of the year will have to be, this video is going to be very long if y'all haven't noticed already. If y'all are still here, I appreciate it. Another favorite book I read this year was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. It was fabulous. It was great. It was an amazing book. Wonderful story about a fake celebrity. And I just absolutely loved reading it. And I honestly don't know if any other books are going to be, with the exception of maybe Anna Karenina, are going to like make it to the favorites list. So Casey editing from the future, or as a comment whenever I finish reading Anna Karenina, will let y'all know about that one. But moral of the story, that was my 2020 reading, and I've enjoyed being on BookTube since, I believe, April or May, when I actually started doing the videos. I've always been a viewer of BookTube for multiple years, but I definitely learned a lot from this reading experience, and have enjoyed it greatly being on BookTube as an outlet for me to be social during, the pandemic, and also to just talk about all the books that I loved. So I will leave y'all with that, and I hope you all had a lovely reading year in 2020 as well, because what a better year you would need to escape from into a good book. So like, subscribe. I'll see y'all next time.